What is up, YouTube family? Welcome to another exciting video. In this video, we're gonna be talking about how to start investing for a complete beginner, and we're gonna be focusing on things that you can start doing right now, even if you have very little money to start. And I'm gonna reveal my #1 strategy for investing that has made me hundreds of thousands of dollars with very little money to start. So stay tuned. All right, guys, so we're gonna be talking about Warren Buffett, AKA the stock market king. We're gonna talk about the strategies that he actually advises and he recommends when it comes to actually getting started investing for beginners. And we're gonna be talking about some of the fatal mistakes to avoid, because a single fatal mistake can destroy you. And what people don't realize is if you have $100 to start and you lose 50%, right? Now you have $50. And then if you make 50% back, right, you don't go back to $100, right? 50% of 50 is 25, so you only go back to 75. So losing money is the #1 worst way to actually, be in the market, right? And Warren Buffett says, don't lose money is rule #1 of investing. And rule #2 is refer to rule #1. So we're gonna be talking about how to actually diversify and mitigate your own risk, because losing money is actually much more important to avoid than gaining money in the long term with investing. And I'm gonna be revealing the #1 strategy that I personally use and recommend to all of my friends and family when it comes to investing. It's called the DCAIF method. We're gonna be talking about that in detail later on, and I'm gonna reveal exactly how anybody anywhere can get started with very, very little money to start investing using this strategy. So I started investing actually when I was 14 years old, and not in the traditional way that you're probably thinking, like stocks and bonds and things like that. But investing, by definition means doing things with your time or money that you hope and assume are going to appreciate in value. Because investing is as much a mindset as it is, investing your actual money into the stock market. If you have the mentality that you need to invest in yourself and invest in your own learning, you're gonna come out way ahead of people who only think about investing their actual money into the stock market. And so if you're only watching this video because you think that I'm gonna reveal like the next 3 hottest stocks that are gonna go from a penny to $1,000, right? That's not the point of this video. The point of this video is to teach you actual fundamentals that over the long term are gonna make you a significant amount of money if you follow these fundamental ideas, right? Because one of the most famous books for investing is actually by Ben Graham, which is one of Warren Buffett's mentors, and it's called The Intelligent Investor. So The Intelligent Investor is probably one of, if not the most famous book on investing, and it's a very long book and it's a very dry read. So I don't personally recommend that people who are just getting started with investing go straight to The Intelligent Investor, because there's so much in that book. There's a lot of good information, but people who are just getting started investing, like if you go straight to The Intelligent Investor, I promise you that most people are gonna get bored of that book. My advice would be to actually read a summary of the book, right? A really well done summary is gonna give you most of the ideas of the book without having to read, hundreds or thousands of pages where most people are gonna give up. Because the main ideas of the book is that people that don't remember the past are condemned to repeat it, right? The stock market is very cyclical. A lot of the same things happen, but when you actually start to lose money on a stock and it goes down, people get emotional, they make emotional decisions. And when you make emotional decisions in the stock market or investments, most of the time it's not going to be a good thing and you're gonna lose money. Ben Graham talks about removing emotion from your stock choices, right? He talks about establishing a strict system and sticking to it. So if you say, I'm gonna buy Amazon at $1,000 a share and I'm not gonna sell it until it gets to 1,200, and I'm not gonna sell it until it goes to, if it goes to 800, right? Writing it down and sticking to that takes the emotion out, right? Because then if you get emotional, if it drops down $50 and you sell all of it, and then the next week it goes up $500, right? You're gonna be sad, but that happens so often. It happens to me, it happens to everyone. So if you remove the emotion from the beginning, you're gonna be in such better shape than most people are when they start investing, and they allow human nature to actually dictate their decisions more so than sound logic and what your actual plan is. So once you read that summary, my favorite book, right, in all of the investing world is actually a book by Peter Lynch, and the book is called How to One-Up Wall Street. And what he talks about is how to use your own experiences in your own life and your own kind of situation to really have a one-up, right, to one-up Wall Street. And let me give you an example to kind of illustrate that. So a few years ago, when I was selling on Amazon FBA full-time, when I was using AWS, Amazon's cloud systems, to run my software and my iOS apps and things like that, I was just dumping money into Amazon. I seriously knew how much money that they were making from FBA, how much money that they were making from AWS. I used Prime every day. All of my friends had Prime shipping. I realized that Amazon had their claws everywhere, and they had these huge competitive barriers to entry that nobody's ever gonna touch, right? For e-commerce, it's Amazon first and everyone else a very, very distant distant second. And so they had all of these like real massive advantages, and I knew how much money that they were making from all of it because I used all of those things, right? And so I went all in. I used my own experiences and I went all in on Amazon. I knew all of my friends were on Amazon. I knew all my friends were using Amazon Prime, not only for shipping, but also to watch videos like Netflix, right? So I went all in on Amazon stock, and I just kept buying more and more and more, and the stock kept going higher and higher and higher. And the reason that I was so confident to do that is because I couldn't literally imagine my life without Amazon. That's the number one strategy that I use when it comes to investing. I never invest in a company that I wouldn't invest for in the long term, and I never ever invest in a company that I can't imagine my life without. And you know, I always say this when we talk about investing and things like that, and people roll their eyes and they say, Kevin, come on, just get to the point. Tell us what stocks and how to actually invest our money. But the thing is, guys, I've invested in real estate. I've invested in crypto. I've invested in bonds. I've invested in stocks. I've invested in all types of things, right? Pretty much every investment that you can make, I've tried, and I've made money on some of it and I've lost money on others. But the truth is, nothing has ever come close to the money and the time that I've invested into myself, into learning, into actually building my YouTube channel, into building my business, into building an Amazon business, into, you know, creating these communities of people. Nothing has ever come close to the ROI, to the return on investment of investing into myself and into my own learning. So my number one recommendation to you before we get into my strategy that I like to use with the stock market is invest in yourself, right? Invest in learning how to do a YouTube channel, invest in creating a Facebook group, invest in a podcast, invest in learning Amazon or SMMA or how to create a digital course or things like that you learn, and you can literally apply that knowledge for the rest of your life. So investing in yourself is by far, no question, the most profitable way of investing. But for the people who are rolling their eyes and they're saying, Kevin, just tell us actually how to invest our money, let's get to that in just a second. Because the truth is, investing and doing so profitably normally is a full-time job, right? Having to do research on these companies and their management and, you know, what their new strategies are and all of this stuff, it takes a ton of time. And so the best strategy for most people is called dollar cost averaging. And I like to add in my own little twist to that, which we're gonna talk about in just one second. But before we do, I wanna quickly recap on what we discussed, right? Because we discussed kind of a lot of things, and I wanna make sure that everybody understands them chronologically. So first and foremost, it is important to invest in yourself, but strictly concerning the stock market, right? It's very, very important to not allow yourself to become emotional, right? Create a plan and stick to it, and you're gonna be in such better shape than people, you know, if the stock drops $10, they sell their whole portfolio, and then the next day the stock, you know, pops $500 and they lost all that potential gain just because they got emotional. Another important strategy that we do need to touch on is creating what's called an emergency fund, right? Never invest all of your money into the stock market or any investment. You wanna save, you know, at least 10% of your take-home pay in an emergency fund in case anything crazy happens, like you break your leg or you're unable to work, or, you know, something happens where you all of a sudden need a lot of money, and people will invest all their money into stocks or bonds or things that they can't get to, you know, quickly, and then, you know, they're kind of out of luck if they have an emergency situation. So what I would always kind of advise people to do is create an emergency fund with 10% or more of your take-home pay, just in case you ever need it. Okay, so what actually is the dollar cost averaging strategy, and what is the IF of the DCAIF? Well, it actually stands for index funds, right? So my strategy that I would always recommend for new people is dollar cost averaging with index funds. And I know that sounds complicated, but let's actually break down exactly what it is and then how anybody anywhere, even with very little money, can get started doing this, investing in the best way. So we're gonna talk about that in 2 seconds, but really quickly, guys, I wanted to give a shout out to our daily comment winner. We want to give shout out and show love to all of our, you know, amazing commenters. Every single day we pick a new person and we give them a big shout out in front of, you know, hundreds of thousands of people on these videos. So shout out to you. And if you want to be our next daily comment winner, all you have to do is one simple thing: leave a comment down below letting me know what your best ever investment was, right? Tell me what your best investment was. Maybe you bought Amazon 10 years ago and you've made, you know, $100,000 with it. Let me know down below in the comment section what your number one investment of all time is, and you could be our next daily comment shout out winner. All right, guys, so what dollar cost averaging actually is actually very simple. So let's say that you have an extra $1,000 a month that you want to invest into the stock market, right? If you have $1,000 a month, then what you're going to do is on the first day of every month, you're going to invest $1,000 into the same stock, right? So let's say that we choose Apple, just for the sake of example, right? So we're going to buy $1,000 of Apple stock on the first of the month, right? So maybe we're going to get 100 shares just for the sake of math. I know that that's not the right the correct actual share price for Apple. But let's say for the sake of math that Apple shares, you can buy 100 of them for $1,000. So then the next month, on the first of the month, we're gonna again invest $1,000, right? But this month, maybe Apple stock went down. And so what's gonna happen is we're actually gonna be able to buy more than 100 shares because Apple stock is actually cheaper this month because the stock price went down. So maybe this month we're gonna buy 110 shares instead of last month we were only able to afford 100 shares with that $1,000. So let's take it to the third month, right? Let's go to the third month. Let's say that Apple stock has gone up, right? So now instead of buying 100 the first month and then the second month the stock price went down, so we were able to buy 110, the third month it actually goes up, right? So now Apple's shares are actually significantly higher, and so this third month we're only able to buy 90 shares. Basically what dollar cost averaging means is you eliminate the need to try to time the market because each month you're buying the same amount of monetary value of stock. If the stock price goes up, you get more shares. If the stock price goes down, you get less shares, but the shares you do have gone up in value. So what it does is it basically mitigates the need to actually try to time the market because you're entering the market every month at the same time, whether the stock goes up, if the stock goes up, you make money on what you have. If the stock goes down, you're able to buy more shares of that stock that are hopefully going to eventually go up. Because, if you take the stock market as a whole, since the stock market first started, right, it's gone up and up and up. And yes, there are, bear markets. And yes, the stock market does go down in the short term, but in the long term, right, the stock market has, since it started, gone significantly up over the long term. And so dollar cost averaging mitigates the need to actually have to try to time the market. And then the next part of it, right, because dollar cost averaging is the DCA, right, IF is index funds. And so what an index fund basically is a low cost, collection of stocks that is meant to mimic the overall movement of the market. And so this is another way to mitigate your risk. And how this works basically is you buy an index fund. And my favorite place to buy index funds is with Vanguard, right? Vanguard has very, very cheap index funds. I would suggest just Googling, Vanguard index funds, and you can read about which ones that you like and are interested in and have been performing well and that align with your investment strategy. And then what I like to do is I dollar cost average the index fund. So every month on the first of the month or the 15th of the month or the 30th of the month, right, I'll buy $1,000 worth of the index fund. What this does is you mitigate your risk of having to time the market with dollar cost averaging, and then you also mitigate the risk of buying a single stock and then that stock going down, right? Because as a whole, the market generally goes up. That's why people invest in the market, because as a whole, the stock market has gone up and up and up. And so investing into an index fund really mitigates your risk of a single stock going down significantly because you're investing into the market as a whole, right? Into the collection of stocks as a whole, which mitigates your risk again. So this is the single strategy that I personally use and have had the best success with because it takes almost none of your time, right? There's very little emotion because it's the stock market as a whole and your dollar cost averaging, which mitigates the actual risk of having to time the market. And so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, do me a favor and click that little like button right here. Click on the red subscribe button, turn on notification bells so that you will be the first person to know every time we drop a brand new video on how to make money online, how to invest, and how to live a happier, healthier, more fulfilling life. And until next time, guys, happy hustling and happy investing.